In September 2012, a band at North Oxford High School near Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, home of one of the great moments in American history, gave a salute to one of the worst moments in history. They performed a halftime show called St. Petersburg 1917, a musical commemoration of the Bolshevik Revolution. The band's website posted a photo of the beaming students holding the hammer and sickle, the symbol that Vladimir Lenin and Leon Trotsky elevated in St. Petersburg in 1917. Here again, not everyone was laughing. "There is no reason for Americans to celebrate the Russian Revolution," said one irate parent. "I am sure the millions who died under communism would not see the joy of celebrating the Russian Revolution by a school 10 miles from Gettysburg." He added, "It was glee meets the Russian Revolution. I'm not kidding you. They had giant hammers and sickles, and they were waving them around." He asked, "Who thought this was a good idea?" Said another parent, "If I was Lithuanian, Estonian, or Ukrainian, I'd be a little hot. I'd be really hot. It's insulting to glorify something that doesn't need to be glorified in America." The parent wondered what the reaction might have been if the band had chosen a Nazi theme, celebrating the music of 1935 Berlin. The superintendent of the school defended her students. "It's a representation of the time period in history called St. Petersburg 1917, she objected. "I'm truly sorry that somebody took the performance in that manner. I am." She continued, "If anything is being celebrated, it's the music. I'm just very sorry that it wasn't looked at as just a history lesson." As a history lesson, it deserves a giant F. How is this happening in America today, a century after the Bolshevik Revolution that launched a global killing spree from Kiev to Cambodia, from Havana to Hungary? What Americans are witnessing here is a direct byproduct of decade after decade of little to no education. Correction, miseducation, on the malicious menace of deadly communism, which America devoted so many precious lives and resources to defeat. We won the Cold War in the political arena, but lost it in the classroom. If and when communism is taught at all in American schools, the communists are often lauded for their idealism, their devotion to equality for women and minorities. Their actual track record, the politically created famines, the wars of aggression, the body count in the tens of millions, is too frequently passed over in silence. It's not that no villains are called out, but they're the anti-communists, like Senator Joe McCarthy. At best, the teacher assumes a position of moral neutrality, as if, to borrow from President Ronald Reagan's Evil Empire speech, the Cold War was simply one giant misunderstanding, in which the Free West occupied no moral high ground. Back in the time of the Cold War, Reagan exposed the folly of moral equivalence between the communist world and the Free West. He urged Americans to beware the temptation of pride, the temptation of blithely declaring yourselves above it all, and label both sides equally at fault, to ignore the facts of history and the aggressive impulses of an evil empire. He urged his countrymen not to remove themselves from the struggle between right and wrong, and good and evil. The fact is, there was right and wrong, and good and evil in the battle against Soviet communism. And though America, as Reagan admitted, had its faults, indeed its sins, it could not hold a candle to the blowtorch of fiery evils emanating from behind the Iron Curtain. The softer side of communism. I could fill this book with story after painful story relayed by my own students, a parade of appalling ignorance in our education establishment. One former student named John, Grove City College, class of 2000, told me about his first assignment as a teaching assistant in a nearby high school history class. He had been a double major in education and history, so he told his supervising teacher he'd be happy to cover the Soviet Union in the 1930s. She agreed. So, John methodically taught about the famine in the Ukraine, Stalin's purges and Great Terror, and the Hitler